Yeah. So what I'd like to share is, if you capture what we are going to speak today, you will understand essentials. If you don't, then it's going to be a very painful journey for us. One of the toughest courses of the four leadership courses that we are going to be doing. And one of the things that I really would like us is that we are actually in essentials competency 2. And it is my desire that every month we finish a competency. In that case, if we finished, let's say in January, we finished competency 1. And in February, we are able to finish 2. March, we are able to finish 3. April, we are able to finish 4. And May, we are able to finish 5. We should be able to finish essentials by May end. June is leaders 1. July is leaders 2. August is leaders 3 unit. September is leaders 4 unit. October is leaders 5 unit. And if you are able to keep pace and complete these correctly, November, the build team is coming down for a celebration service like we did for the demon. And they want to award the Seaman to all of us who have yet to, that is one of our, I would say, milestones that we need to finish. So I'd like all of us to work. I think the challenge for people here would be, if you have not done your map and life and ministry practicum, you will not be able to make it. So over the next 11 months, at least 10 months, I need all of us to put in our effort and complete the map, the life and which map and all. If you sit in continuously for 3 days, not I mean the whole day, but at least 3-4 hours in every 3 days, you can complete map. You can complete life and another 3 to 4 hours of, and you can complete ministry practicum another 3 to 4 hours. It's not difficult, but there's a mind block towards it because you're just not confident of how to do it. If any of you need help, I'll request Elijah to do a tutoring of all 3 in one of the sessions, and so that you capture the value of it, the principles behind it, and the fastest way to do it. So I'd like all of you to work on those parallelly, and as we finish the competencies, please write your papers. Like competency 1, we finished. We finished it pretty thoroughly, and I think it is very important that we really put in effort to finish it. Let me just load the Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, boss.
Have you all seen the new build login? It's amazing. The whole cloud has been upgraded. And there is such an amount of tools now loaded on us on the cloud to help our churches. So that is really, really good. What was I going to show you? I'm sorry. Just, yeah, let me do essentials. Yes. Uh, essentials. So you have a new, as a result of teaching the course produce. Okay, mine is a difficult summary of the Kerygma and Didache. This is a demon console, so it's under teaching practicum. So here So look at they're now giving more detail, like instructions. This competency will draw on what you learned about traditions, patterns, and sound doctrine in Unit 1, Issue 1, and Paul's process of establishing the churches in Unit 1, Issue 2. Based on the knowledge you have gained about the content of the Kerygma and Didache in issue in Unit 1, Issue 3, write out your own summary of the Kerygma and Didache in your own words, based on the biblical passages and theological readings. Be sure that your work shows real interaction with the theological readings, such as comparing them, giving specifics about their contributions, and identifying challenges that they raise for you. Be sure to comment on how you envision implementing the lessons you have learned in this competency to your own ministry situation, whatever that might be. Be sure to address what you have learned about the content of this course, as well as what you have learned about the skill of teaching. That's only related to the demon problem. You will benefit to look at the document tradition, patterns, and sound doctrines in the early church in the project guidelines and modes model section, and specifically the lecture, the Kerygma and Didache of that. So it's good to find that document, and it'll help you to write this document. So they've changed the console a lot. They've really upgraded the cloud, especially if you see this equip. It's amazing the way it helps the church to journey together in the learning process. So I'm hoping that all of you would work on competency 1. Anybody could write competency 1? Anybody?
I
I
started,
was, I mean,
but
last time.
initial stages.
Okay. Elijah,
I was
very
saying
Good
last time
morning,
you had
Pastor.
given me points,
yes,
so
Daisy.
Sorry, Pastor, I had PTA meeting for Jeremy. That's why I couldn't attend. Sorry. I totally missed out.
No. Were you able to write anything in competency 1?
No.
Okay. Elijah, is there anything pending backwards for you?
Oh yes, so many things. The entire polling course is pending for me.
Oh, okay. But don't bother. You keep writing what you're, going
Right.
through. Again, I want to repeat that as we do the biblical theology here in the group, as we do the readings, and whatever you're capturing with relevance to the issue and relevance to the unit, what do you say, the unit emphasis, please jot down into a paper, into a note, type into a Word document, or write in a notebook the thoughts, because as we are discussing, a lot of ideas and thoughts will come for you from the ideas shared from the theological readings, from the biblical theology and our group discussion. Please bring that into the thing, and once you finish the unit, and all your notes are there, basic notes are there, it is very very easy to write your paper. It's not that difficult. And now I have noticed that they have become much more easier on the papers than before. There is a de-emphasis on Antioch courses for them. So they are allowing, if you have got reasonably good content, they are clearing the paper. In the sense, the ideas are there. If they are not looking for a perfect paper. And of course, Antioch or Build never emphasizes on the academic aspect. They want us to get the idea of how to do, idea of what the course intends you to get, as far as the way of Christ and his apostles, and how you can help the church. You got the ideas.
first for the competency evaluation, so that Bill Burns only will still be.
Yeah. Bill Burns is in fact, Bill Burns will be coming this year sometime, so we'll have a nice time with him.
Yes.
Like we had with Michael.
Yeah.
And good news is Matthew Subhash and the leadership in NLF in New York is going to the Bill conference, and I'm waiting for them to attend and share with us their experience and their learnings. And I've asked Michael to stream it for us so that we can at least get the learnings. Subhash and family and the team there will experience the hospitality. I heard that it is an amazing hospitality that they have. So I want to share something. So I'm hoping that by next week, all of you could finish your competency one. I know that all of you, many of us here are involved on multiple tracks on the build system. Some of you are doing first principles, the MEXI program, now the essentials with me, and then your own learnings and things like that. So those who are in the church network know that we have also so many events and the activities and learning projects. So I know it is difficult, but at least this team should be able to have the November celebration conference of being awarded the Seaman. That will be an amazing, amazing achievement to go for the November awards like we did for our Demon, and all of you getting your Seaman would be an amazing thing. Also, many of the other learning tracks we are doing, like first principles. So your church people, if they were to complete series 1, then they can get the award for that. So we can take them to the award session, and it'll be a gala dinner, lunch or dinner with gala event with all the bells and whistles, and so that our church people also are encouraged that they are getting an award from dignitaries who have come all the way from abroad, and their system, they are also in the system. Their certificate is generated by the system, but they will bring a hard copy in a file and everything and award it to them. So it is important that one, we ourselves, and also whoever is on the MEXI program, if we can finish the MEXI program, that award we can get. If you finish your own first principles journeys here and there, you will get certificates for that also. So I'm hoping that there'll be enough people for us from our team. If there are so many enough people from our churches, Michael then will organize something in Bangalore only. Otherwise, we will all go to Chennai and have it. And of course, Chennai has NLAG's a lot of conference facilities. So I think that will be easier for all of us. For us to travel to Chennai would not be very difficult. We can go in the morning and come back. All right. So given all that, let me just take you through the basic ideas that we are going to work with in this course, and which we have already started. The most important thing is that the framework is gospel plus Didache, or what we here call the Kerygma, equals discipleship. Now, this is a very crude equation, but there is a reason why I'm putting it like this. Otherwise, we don't tend to capture what this course discipleship. Gospel plus Didache is equal to discipleship. Now, how do we figure this out? Let's look at the Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Go into all the world, preach the good news. So you have the gospel. Baptize them. That is again part of the gospel. And then those who are saved are brought into the church, and they are taught all that Jesus commanded. So I call it the basic teachings of Christ, or what we call as the first principles. Okay, so so there's a timeline that I'd like to draw, and all of us to capture something from this timeline. And I've done this timeline before with all of us. We are in 2024. We have Christ's birth, 6 to 4 BC, cross AD 28 to 32, we're not sure. Then, of course, the coming of the Holy Spirit, the birth of the church, all in and around that same time. And then you have in AD 48 to 52, the first documents, Christian documents, biblical documents being generated in the Thessalonians or the Galatians. Now, more and more, there is evidence of Galatians being the first one. Okay, we are not clear on that. So, and then the entire corpus, the New Testament corpus, is closed by 1 second. The entire New Testament corpus is, let's say, closed by AD 95. 95, the corpus is closed. Closing of empty corpus. The next major event would be 300 years, nearly 200 years from then, is in AD 314 to AD 355. You had the beginning of, let's say, the Catholic Church. Also the canonization. I just got a book which I'm waiting to read, Exploring the Origins of the Bible, Kerygma. It's something that was always not fully clear to me, so I'm going to explore this as we do this course. Canon formation in historical, literary, and theological perspective. Kerygma. Yeah, so the canonization, and possibly the next big event was in the AD 1000, 10th century. 10th century to 11th century was the Orthodox Church coming out of the Catholic Church. So you had from the 300s to the 10th or 11th century, from the 4th century to the 10th century, you had only one church, the Catholic Church. But from the 10th century onwards, you had two big major denominations, the Orthodox and the Catholic, and they are still there. They are still there. And then around AD 1514, we have what we call as the rumblings or the Reformation, which of course spanned about another 30, 40, 50 years. The whole process took place. Reformation, and as we come down the line, there were a lot of small recoveries taking place in the in the whole the Zwingli, the Calvins, and all this thing, and then the Anabaptists, and we had so many, the Methodists, with all the revivals that happened in both the European as well as the American, the revivals that happened. You had movements coming out of that. And then finally you have in AD 1900 is the next biggest movement, that is the Pentecostal movement. Pentecostal, Azusa Street and all of those things. And in AD 1960, 1960, you had possibly the beginning of the charismatic movement. Charismatic, which is actually a part of the Pentecostal movement, actually. And then you had we are in that phase right now. So why am I telling you all this? Is these were all paradigms. That means And I had a beautiful definition for the paradigm. Let me just put that for you. What is paradigms? One second. A typical example or pattern or something, a pattern or model. Um, uh, there are other beautiful definitions. I don't have it with me right now. It's on my iPad. A distinct set of ideas that uh, help move society or any other thing. So this was actually first developed in the 1960s in the science framework. So we also have all of these great transitions that happened in the Christian history were all paradigmatic in its journey. So the biggest event that possibly in our history is the Reformation. The Reformation. And why this was is this was the recovery of the gospel. The recovery of the gospel. And for the last 500 years, the church, the last 500 years, the church is intoxicated with this philosophy, the gospel, and which of course I think is one of the greatest recoveries that we have experienced from the what we call as the apostolic period, the apostolic period. Apostolic period. That means the time where there were witnesses who walked and lived and heard Jesus Christ, were alive, and they were speaking to the church. So I think this recovery was an amazing recovery. And the church has been toying with the idea of the gospel. The amount of volume of material that have been generated on the idea of the gospel is phenomenal. And we're still doing it. In fact, nearly all of our preachings in current modern day Pentecostal, charismatic, and even other denominational organizations like the Methodist and Presbyterian, all of it, they are still toying around with the idea of the gospel. But in the last 40 years, world over, there is a paradigm shift taking place. And may not be as recognized now as the Reformation, because we are so intoxicated with the idea of the Reformation that we are not able to fully grasp what God is doing in the last 40 years. And I'd like to state it as the recovery. One second. The recovery. Hey, what is going on? Sorry. Why is it drawing everything everywhere? I would say it's called the recovery of the Didache. And history, whatever we have of Christianity, the writings that we have recovered archaeologically and is available to us, we are so sure that um, that this period, what the apostles wrote, and a little bit of this period, that there was Didache documents. The church had generated. Now, I'm not saying all of the, because there is a Didache document recovered from the first, within the first 100 years. That the document is corrupt. That means it has stuff inside which we would not even agree with. But the fact that there existed a Didache document clearly goes on to help us to see that that the New Testament church had already developed well-developed idea of both the idea of Kerygma and Didache. And when the apostles taught, and if you look at the writings of Paul and Peter, James, and John, all of them clearly show that they had the preaching of the gospel and the teachings. It is like the whole letter is completely impregnated with this idea, which, because we are still lost in this paradigm, we are not able to see it. And I think the Build and a couple of other movements around the world have now discovered the Didache, and they are now, and I would say this is the next Reformation, or the second Reformation, whatever you want to call it. Why? Because why am I calling it like that? I'm calling it like that because we recovered the gospel from this. Now, when Martin Luther recovered the gospel, where did he get it from? Anybody? Martin Luther recovered the Kerygma. If you all know the story, where do you think he got it from?
Isn't it from the New Testament?
Good. Narrowed it down to New Testament. Little more.
Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John?
No, actually. If you
Romans, book of Romans, right?
Yes. Romans, which verse was the one that struck? Of course, the whole reading of Romans, but of course, he anchored it all on one specific verse.
Romans 6 or 8, I've got.
I think for all have sinned.
Romans
Okay. The just shall live by faith. That's what.
Pastor, chapter 1 ആണത്.
Pastor?
Romans chapter 1.
The just shall live by faith?
17th, 18th, 19th was 18th and 19th was you.
Okay.
16th was
17.
Okay. Anyway, it is from the New Testament, from the writings of Paul.
Yeah, Romans is correct, Pastor. What Pastor John said, Romans 1:17.
Yes. So, I mean, that's correct. Romans 1:17. Let me just take the verse. 17. Yeah. Let me just show that verse to you all. I hope all of you have this software. Annotate. Yeah, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. In fact, this is what triggered. I mean, I have the movie, the Martin Luther movie is a beautiful one. That's done in black and white actually. But this triggered. Martin Luther was a Roman Catholic priest. Martin Luther was trained in Latin and he had access to the scriptures, and he was struggling with his to become righteous. So he was whipping himself, spending long times in penance, and he was not getting peace. So he searched the scriptures and he discovered that the Catholic Church was not telling the truth, and that that righteousness of God is given free to those who believe in Jesus Christ and not by works. And he discovered that, and from that he wrote the 95 Theses and he nailed it onto the wall of the church. Of course, he never intended to, to start the Reformation or ever to create the Protestant movement, but he eventually grew. Of course, it was not him. You had many other people also, like Huss, Wycliffe, and we need to know this history because all of these people, they were put to the stakes, they were burned because they tried to bring the Bible to the common man, and they were teaching now the truth of the gospel. So we know that the New Testament, especially the writings of Paul, were key to the recovery of the gospel. And we were recovering what was already given to us in the New Testament writings, and that which the apostles taught. But what has happened is that the church is so what happened? You have the Catholic Church, which is a very powerful organization. And this small group of people who were ushering in the Reformation through the theological understanding, the framework that they were creating, they were fighting a large body of theologians, a large organization, politically strong, with all of those things, with all of those issues. The work that they had before them was to stand for the gospel. So they were theologically and philosophically defending the gospel. And that continued. That even continues still today. We are still arguing. All of the apologetics and everything is arguing the gospel, basically. And what the church missed out in the last 500 years was there was a set of teachings. There was a set of teachings that was supposed to accompany the preaching of the gospel, and to proceed from the gospel was the basic teachings of Christ, how this gospel is to be lived out in the lives of the people. And the apostles were persistent. So we would say that now this Reformation is happening. So you have the first Reformation, and now the second Reformation. And our generation is possibly the one that is surfing this paradigm shift. We are having the benefit of, I'm in that 25 years. Oh wow, we were freaking out on the gospel. My life, I knew all of the different aspects of the way you teach the gospel, and I did all of those. But I realized something, that along my journey, I mean, much before I came even to the ideas that we are toying with right now, I figured that there is something missing. Why? Because my own life, I was not able to live a life. I knew the gospel. I'm enjoying the gospel, the benefits of the gospel. But somewhere I knew that there is something missing in the whole process that I was going through. Me experiencing renewal, sanctification, growing. I knew that I'm having some challenges. Something is missing. And not only in my life, I also saw that in the life of the people that I was leading, both to Christ in sharing of the gospel, and also in the churches that we planted and we were leading people in the churches. I figured that there's something missing. There is something missing in with regard to the aspect of we are not able to live victoriously, and somehow we are having challenges of how to build our lives around the gospel. So, with the discovery of what we are toying around with it, and now specifically my eyes being opened to the New Testament and the writings of the New Testament, and discovering that, my God, there was a set of teachings, and that is what the apostles are writing in the letters. I am so overwhelmed that how did we miss this out? How did we miss this amazing truth that Christ, through the Spirit, gave to the apostles, not just the gospel, but the basic teachings, which was supposed to this was to bring us to a new faith, new belief, and this was to bring us to a new behavior. A new way of living. So we did this pretty well. But it was so fragmented for us, the way we gave it. I experienced it, or the way that I led the church also, that we were giving, it has to be, I mean, what I'm saying is not that we didn't have any of it, but we didn't build it as a framework. We didn't build it as a framework so that we could not fully live the gospel. We could not fully live the gospel. So without building this framework, I would still call it a gospel framework, which is, held by the Didache or the teachings, where we are able to navigate through life, that Paul calls it walk in him. We are able to navigate that such that every area of our life, which is deeply influenced by the philosophies of the world around us, we are able to push back those philosophies, uninstall those philosophies, and install the gospel, and allow the gospel to take charge of our lives in a balanced way across the different areas of our lives. So, what this course we are trying to do is, they are asking us to recover for ourselves. To recover for ourselves the gospel and the Didache. They're asking, of course, the course material is giving us ideas in history. So they are telling us now what was the gospel with the apostles, the church fathers, the Catholic Church, Reformation, and discipleship movements. Now, let me take the idea of discipleship. I mean, I'm a product of that movement, and whatever done by those who led me were done sincerely and with full effort, but without the full idea of what actually the apostles were telling. In that, it was individualistic, and the predominant thought that was there was, we are saved from our sins. We are saved from our sins. We are now blessed, healed, and of course, there are other themes, but all along the idea that we are saved from our sins and we are blessed, we are healed, and whatever the other benefits of that. And then we are going to heaven. All of it was around this idea. Saved from our sins, blessed because of we are heirs, co-heirs with Jesus, and all of the benefits. For most of it, we take it from Romans 1 to 11. Most of the benefits, or Galatians, we take these benefits out, and we have distilled it, because the last 500 years we are toying with the idea of the gospel, and we have distilled out the gospel and the benefits of now having this position, this positional advantage because of the gospel. From here, we have this idea of heaven, or let's other way of putting is rapture. And if you see most of these songs of the Puritans and the Puritan period, is this the songs on the idea of the gospel. Okay, and of course, if the song usually ends with, we are going to heaven, the rapturous joy on the other shores. If you notice that, I hope you are all able to recognize from these songs these two extremes that has been positioned and taught. But what we have the problem is, what happens to the time in between that we have to be here on earth, which is mostly the time in the church that we are spending. Mostly the time in the church means we, after getting saved, we come to a church and we have been part of a church. This period, we have not significantly worked on what we needed to have taught the people to navigate this period of life. So what do we teach in church? We are predominantly, most of the 80% of the preaching is on most of the people preaching is focused on how to behave the 2 hours we are in church. Or we are preaching elements of the gospel. There are different, 1 second, hold on. Somebody is calling. So, we in this, so we have not taught the people to live this period on earth, whereas the apostles focused on how to navigate the journey on earth. Journey on earth. That was the main focus of the apostles in the letters, but we have completely missed out in bringing this to the church. Sorry, again, this guy is calling. sorry. So we are speaking of everything about the gospel. We're speaking a lot about heaven, and we're speaking a lot about how to behave in church, but we are not allowing people. So if you take the discipleship manuals that has come over the last 40 years, which is the last phase of the the development of the so-called Didache, we know that the discipleship manuals talk about church, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about the Father, talk about Satan, talk about end times. These are the things that are talked about. But if you take our lives as we see it, and we take the 24/7 events in this 24/7, what do you think the 24/7 events are? The 24/7 events, what do you think they comprise of? What all do we do during a day, classical day?
Work.
Go to work, be at home with kids and other family.
So we have family, which is of course basic is marriage. Then we have parenting, because if we have children, that's a significant part. We go for work, so employee or employer, work. Then we have neighbors. Then we have church. So pretty much this will cover the 24 hours of the day. So if you look at what was taught, and this is beautiful content. I'm not against this content. This is nice. This is worth learning. But this is still explaining to a great extent the gospel. Knowing this content or having this knowledge has not helped me to live my marriage, has not helped me to live how to bring up my children, has not helped me to live out my life in my workplace, has not helped me to live out my life before the world around me, the neighbors, not helped me to understand what church was primarily functional for. It has prepared me for eternity as they think it is. I mean, according to that content, it is preparing us for eternity. It has prepared me very well on my position in Christ through the gospel. But it has completely missed out on developing me or teaching me. So if you go to the discipleship manuals, there is no content addressing these areas of my life. So Sunday, I have this amazing experience because the gospel and the teachings of the gospel has its effects. And next Sunday, I have a similar experience. But during the week, I don't know how to. I've given my people the idea of having a quiet time, reading having a quiet time, reading some daily devotional, and I sort of fit my life into that. But there was no substantial teaching that came out of the gospel to apply to different areas of my life. If you take the discipleship manuals, I'm not asking you to believe me, take the discipleship manuals. I am a collector of books. I have discipleship manuals, so many of them. None of them ever teach us anything about these areas of our life. So what is required for us 24/7, that is not spoken. So what we have is chaos in the thank you, Subhash, for posting that. So what we are seeing is that the church over the last 2,000 years, or let's say close to 1,500 years, we have no proper, but the Catholic Church to some extent had what they call as the catechism. And it was a good thing. Catechetic, that is teaching. that a person would come to salvation, that is through the pouring of the water. That's their salvation. And then the person is, you have to give me, can you all have a small discussion on this ideas? I'll just come to you in about 5 minutes, and then we'll.
What was the article that you're studying about?
Sorry, you asked something?
Yeah, I was checking with Robin if what was his article about.
Okay.
Elijah, you were asking about article.
Yeah. What was it about?
Oh, it's about the deposit of faith, and it's very interesting article. So it talks about how church came up with the canon creed, apostles creed, and the apostle succession. So I think it was not a very thought out process, but came as a response to heretical teachings. So that's very interesting. Yeah. Even apostles creed is like a response to very particular teachings which were happening that time. It's like answer to the heretical teachings. Nothing like apostles have sat down and prepared it. It became apostles creed later. So it's like a very interesting article. Even the canon came as a response to teaching.
Nice.
But Nicene Creed is totally different than the Apostles' Creed, right?
I think it's all included as a part of that, right? Or I don't know about that. Anyone knows about that Nicene Creed?
So I know there were different creeds that went about, and it happened in different times. But just like you said, I think they were also responses to some issue that the church was facing, and then to sort those things out, they came together and formed a creed or formed their beliefs into statements. So, but I don't know history as much. I'm interested to find out. That's why I think I'm interested about this course.
Yeah, I think Nicene Creed and Apostolic Creed are totally different. Nicene Creed, according to my, what I see formulated in the formal council at Nicaea in 325 AD. Whereas Apostles' Creed is in the 2nd century.
Okay.
I think there were different creeds, right? It's not. So
As per my search, it says the Nicene Creed addresses the divinity of Christ in response to the Arian controversy, emphasize the relationship between God the Father and God the Son, affirming their consubstantially or bracket of the same substance.
yeah, I think it's all response to all the heretical teachings which are going on.
Okay, so 325 Nicene Creed, AD 381 Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. So it's called the Expanded Nicene Creed. 451, you have Chalcedonian Creed. And then somewhere in the 1st century AD. Oh, so but most likely developed between the 2nd and 4th century. That is the Apostles' Creed. So date is not defined.
Yeah.
And then somewhere between 3rd and 4th and 4th and 5th, you have Athanasian Creed. So Apostles' Creed, they say it is dated to the 1st century, but the form most likely got developed between 2nd to 4th century.
Yeah.
So what they were, I think in the article which I am presenting, they were, the author is mentioning that the Apostles' Creed is kind of a symbol, right? It's like a symbol given to the Christians. So whoever can recite that creed, they are not, they are neither agnostic, like from the heretical side. So whoever can recite that creed, they are not part of the heretical group. So that's the main idea behind this creed.
Whoever can
Yeah,
recite,
which is
is
true,
that
right?
like the
No, recite, or they can identify with the creed, the belief,
okay.
main clauses, everything, because that is exact opposite of the heretical teaching. So
Yeah, Apostles' creeds are a concise statement of basic Christian belief, right? So focusing the Trinity, life and death and resurrection
yeah,
of Jesus
those
Christ.
are, so that's why the main intent is that those statements are addressed as a response to heretical teachings. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was one heretical movement, Gnostic movement, where they
Mm-hmm.
told, where they believed, they considered like the material world is kind of evil, and it was not created by God the Father, and all those heresies were there. So that's why, to counter that, the church has introduced all these clauses just in response to all those heresies.
Yeah, exactly like Paul addressed the Corinthians and Thessalonians and all, exactly same way. I think they had to address that according to that particular time, right? So
yeah.
So it's, if you've seen the Calvinism and Armenian debate, you'd see that most of the Armenian points are, so if you read them in isolation, they seem to make an argument. But then when you read with what Calvinism said and then Armenian said, you can see that they are actually a response to each other. Like the Armenianism is a response to the Calvinism that happened. And I think even for the creeds, that's what we're making. Right? So it's a response to what happened. And it would be interesting to read what is it that the people believe, and then how did the creed address that response.
Yeah, in this article which I am telling, it's in the 2nd century where the Gnostic movement came, and it was like a threat to the church. And there is one more movement known as Marcionism. It was led by a person known as Marcion, and his movement also was a big threat to the church in the 2nd to 4th century. So those things, those are the times where Pastor has mentioned, right? This canonization all formed that time as a response to those heretical teachings. So all these things are not really well thought, but as a response to the heresies the church introduced. Like one is canonization, Apostles' Creed, and even the one more one more thing was yeah, the succession, apostle succession. So that all came as a with a good intention, but yeah, it's all as a response to that time's teaching.
Yeah, interesting. And the thing is, if you remove that context out, we would have a totally different understanding of what the creed said.
Yeah.
And I think same applies to the letters also. So if you look at Paul's letters, they were also situational theology, right? They were response to something that happened in the church. And then when you remove that picture out, then you can make his letters say something totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, we can twist the things, right?
Yep. So how was the discussion so far?
We were discussing on the article that Rob would present.
Yeah. So I hope that all of us are able to realize, and it's a very paradigmatic issue, that the church is now discovering the Didache, and I think it is that place before the coming of Christ where the bride is made pure and holy, the washing, where the gospel is now applied to every area of her life, that the church is able to rise and come to a place where she's ready for her groom. I find that as I'm more figuring it out, seeing it from a very bird's eye view, that I think it's so critical as far as ministry is concerned, as far as church ministry is concerned, for us to grasp this and what the Spirit is doing currently, and where the Spirit intends to take the church in the days to come. If we capture these paradigms, if we capture what God is doing, we are nowhere undermining what was recovered through the Reformation. That is not the idea. But we are saying that it's not complete yet, what the Spirit is doing. The Spirit is now giving the church, helping the church recover the Didache and establish the church now in the faith, in that way. And that what the bill provides as the first principles is what we call as a modern day Didache. So what is the meaning of that idea? So when we go back from for 2024, we are going back to the Apostles' period. We are doing fresh biblical theology. We are not being prejudiced or biased by this era. We are going back to the first century freshly and reading it freshly without the bias and the prejudice. We are then taking the principles and bringing it to our time, which we call as doing theology in culture. We are applying those principles within our culture, within our context. This is what we are to do today. We are to figure out what the Christ spoke to the churches through the Spirit, through the work of the apostles. And this course is helping us to do this. And not only this, we are trying to figure out how the Didache changed during these different periods. And we have to write papers on that. So these different periods, we have to write papers, and after having read what the church was teaching at that time, we need to, sorry, I just have to do something here. Yeah. All right. Okay. So some comments, thoughts, ideas around what we were speaking. Are we all able to fully grasp this concept? And if we have grasped this idea, what are we going to do with it And the end point of this course is that all of us will be able to write our Didache statements, at least, not expanding it, maybe writing our Didache statements as we now search the New Testament and we figure out what did the apostles speak and what are the areas they spoke, and we are able to capture it and write it down in ourselves. That means probably Jeff did that exercise and Jeff came out with the first principles. So series 1 and series 2, the first 8 books is the modern day Didache. Series 3 is preparing a person for ministry, interpreting the Bible, then the full understanding of missions in terms of the planting of church, the establishing of church, the multiplying of churches, raising up leaders, and all of those things. But the Didache per se was series 1 and 2, the first 8 books that he has written, and his work is what we are going to focus on as a background for us to prepare our own material, our own ideas of the Didache. So that is about it. Now I'm going to keep quiet for some time. I've taken enough time of the conversation.
So I'm just curious. The situation we are in, I'm pretty sure the same is in India and across the globe, especially regarding the identity crisis, transgender and diversity and inclusion. And especially here in this country where we are, becoming so difficult for any evangelist or any pastors to serve. You might have heard many news, so how do we come up with the Didache, which is addressing those? Basic purpose of Didache is addressing the challenges of that particular time, right? The issues. So I'm just curious how we can come up with something to address those kind of issues.
We can definitely. In fact, when Michael was here, I was actually talking to him about that, what their experiences are. Conversation is too early in the sense we couldn't fully finish the conversation. We just started the conversation and so many new things. He had such a short time here. We can definitely do biblical theology on that specific issue of. But what we are talking about predominantly is 2% of the community, which is now a bloated political issue that is made there, especially in your country at this point. We don't have
Not
that.
only politically, it is whether you believe it or not. Especially those who are less than 40, majority, more than 60% of the people support.
No, so
all these things.
It is like Hindutva in India. It is like Hindutva in India. No Hindu is actually a Hindutva idea person. But now, if you see, majority of the Hindus have got Hindutva ideas in their mind. It is a politically stimulated issue. If you study transgender issues or intersex issues or the LGBTQ issues, of course, we have, because the church itself is failing. The church itself is failing to place a standard. The church itself is failing to adorn the gospel. The world does not have a moral compass. The church is so intoxicated with the idea of going to heaven that the church itself does not have a moral ground to stand and declare Christ. So the moral compass of the church itself is gone. Now, if the church is not the light of the world is going to go into darkness, more and more darkness. And Satan and his troops are taking advantage of it through political media and other ways, and they are propagating the whole idea. But That is one of the areas we are going to deal with when we do, as part of the Didache, marriage, for example. Parenting, marriage and parenting are going to be key areas. We have to bring out what the apostles taught and place it before the church people. When I do the part of marriage, we talk about the whole LGBTQ issue and how we need to navigate it. It's a cultural issue at this point for us also, because our politicians are not right now harvesting on that, but your politicians are harvesting on that to get their mileage, to get their votes. It's like here they are now harvesting on other areas like religion. There you're harvesting on what we are talking about. What percentage of Hindus who would have in Hindutva ideas probably before the last 20, 30 years were minimal. It was maybe a small part of the community, of the Hindu community. Hindus were so loving, so open, so friendly. But today, the moment you say Jesus, if you're sitting in a restaurant and you said something about Jesus openly, you can see the eyes look at it. It's predominantly a conversion idea which has been fed into the minds of the people. So you have a similar situation with regard to the LGBTQ issue in USA. It's coming to India. It's coming to India in a big way. But it is a over-bloated, over-emphasized with regard for political advantage. It is talking. And all of them have joined the bandwagon. Everybody wants the votes. So we can build a Didache area of that within the context of marriage, because in the context of marriage comes the idea of gender and then the idea of parenting. How do we bring up our children, and what can happen if you don't properly bring up our children? Well, you know, the church has the parents have outsourced the discipleship to the church of the children. And what do we call it? We call it Sunday school. And while Sunday school, I believe, has a part to play, and is a cultural product that we have, and has a part to play. But I think what we have missed out is the Bible clearly emphasizes on the father and mother's role in discipling the child in the context of a community, which we have completely failed. Very few parents are spending time teaching, praying and everything. They believe. One lady very lovingly told me, Pastor, what is the Sunday school for? So I had to sit and explain to that lady, you are saying your child needs 45 minutes every week of Sunday school, or let's say 1.5 hours of Sunday school, of which more than half of it is jumping and dancing and playing. And then we teach them Joseph is father of Jesus and Mary is the mother of Jesus. And we tell lovely stories, which is not bad. But do you think our child's spiritual life is going to grow with that concepts, with those things in the way we are expecting? And that parent has no time actually. Maximum what the parent will do is make them sit for an evening prayer where the father and mother is sleepy and maybe say a Lord's Prayer, or maybe say a few words and we put them to sleep. I'm not saying though that is also not bad. That's good. At least something will happen. Most of the families don't even have that. Most of the families don't even have a proper daily family prayer or this thing. Everybody is struggling with that. Everybody's saying, because we don't have the framework. We don't have a framework built into our thing from our salvation. As we were growing, our whole idea that the gospel needs to be applied in these areas. Awesome. Good question. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only just limited to LGBTQ. I'm talking about the diversity and inclusion is going. I know some certain things are controversial. For example, here, you know, in your city, there are so many illegal immigrants, and it is even the schools has to shut down. You know, the children are not able to go to school because they need to be sheltered. And as a humanitarian point of view, and as Jesus said, the grace, we need to show grace to our foreigners, and we have to. But at the same time, many are coming illegally, and it is taking up the entire system, which people like the normal people, those who work hard, and especially aspirates in home care, and they're not even getting basic medical needs, and Medicare and Medicare don't approve. those who work hard 50, 60 years, and whereas these people get everything at taxpayers' money, and which is going to be a big crisis, and it explodes everywhere. So there are many things like that, that inclusion and diversity is overpowering the law of the country. And so there are so many complicated issues
So
where
those
we
are
are right now.
those are one upon the other stacked. And
Yeah.
primarily at this point, again, everything comes down to basic politics, how politicians use these different areas
Yeah.
to develop. So those are cultural issues, and what the church has to offer, not just the salvation and restoring the relationship with God. The church has also offered to a lot, at least the basic teachings on which we can discuss and have conversations about the other cultural issues that we are talking about. Thank you, Subhash. Anybody else would like to share some thoughts on what conversation we had today? At least all of us as leaders, as people who lead churches or communities, I am overwhelmed with the thought that, my God, how much I need to put in effort to establish my people in the first principles. First principles, of course, is we have named Jeff has named the course. I'm not talking about Jeff's books. I'm talking about what in Colossians and in Hebrews and in Galatians, what they talk as the elementary teachings or the basic teachings of Christ. How important then it would be to invest my time and resources to see my churches who know the gospel and who are on the way to heaven, to prepare them for the journey here on earth. I can't even overstate it. I mean, it's like, it's so the need of the hour. The putting the effort into it. Now churches are not interested. People are not interested. People are absolutely not interested, because for them it was the gospel. Hey, I have believed in Jesus Christ. I'm going to heaven. My sins are forgiven. Even if I commit sins, even that is taken care of. It is completely done for. My sins are forgiven. My past, present sins are forgiven. What are you talking about, Pastor? I'm coming to church. I'm coming regularly to church. I'm cleaning the chairs. I'm putting the offertory. I'm paying my tithes. I'm taking part in all the activities. What are you after me for? Why are you irritating me? I'm going to heaven, Pastor. Pastor, my salvation is secure. The eternal security of my salvation by what Jesus did. Why are you bothered about me like this? Here I am chasing people, telling people, come on, we need to get together. We need to have conversations so that our church is fully geared to handle some of the issues. Even what Subhash is saying, how do we handle it if our people don't know the basic teachings of Christ? The basic teachings of Christ is not a doctrine of sin, doctrine of Satan, all of the other things that we teach along with that. That's not a basic teachings of Christ. The basic teachings of Christ is the fully understanding the gospel and then teaching them how that gospel should change every area of our life. Elijah?
Yeah, I think it all stems down from what do we understand the gospel to be. And the way it is taught, the way it is evangelized, the focus is always on the salvation of an individual. And that ends up with people with the wrong expectations that, okay, now that I'm saved, I'm done. But if you proclaim the gospel in a way that shows Jesus as the Messiah and Jesus as doing something in this world on establishing people and forming them into new humans, if you don't get that part right, then your entire expectation is formed. Then it's only about a self-focused person. What do I get out of it? I get healing, I get wealth, I get all my problems solved. And nothing is about, what Jesus called his disciples to be, to take up their cross and follow me. And no one does that. And so I see that the Reformation had the recovery of the gospel, but over time, I think the focus of the gospel, what people speak, what people believe, has become very individualistic, and it is colored by our philosophy of life itself, and that has limited people. And even when we are doing then the recovery of the Didache, I think we have to start with the gospel and tell what was the gospel about. And it's not about just salvation; it's about maturing and becoming like Jesus in this world and bringing his kingdom here. And then when you get into that right framework, then we focus on the teachings. We focus on, okay, this is how you get your life ordered, step by step, one by one. And still, I think, again, even the teaching without the context of the local church, it does not make much sense. You have to see that it is a shared life. And in that shared life together, we all are journeying into getting mature. So, as you rightly said, it's a big journey. It's a long journey. It's a journey that takes all of your life. It's hard work. And as leaders, when we grasp what's happening and what is the call that God has put on our lives to mature and shepherd our churches, once we get that, it is something that cannot let you sleep. And then you are up every time, and you're thinking how you can change lives, how you can build a family together that matures.
I
And
like
then
that.
multiplies and expands.
Yeah, I like that what Elijah you said. In our process of recovering the Didache, we need a restatement of the gospel in its in its actual early church paradigmatic context, so that we can end with the Didache correctly. Otherwise, we actually may, if we go through the last 500 years journey, we may not end up with the Didache that the apostles actually taught. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I think that's substantial point. I think we should come, that should come back in our competency as well. Yes. Anybody else would like to share a few thoughts?
Also, I think that if Christianity is just about salvation and all, then people live a hypocritic life. So I have seen a leader of my church who used to be excellent in the church and all other church activities, but was not in good terms with neighbors. Means used to be on the extreme that that neighbor is doing puja, so that agarbatti smell is coming, that is irritating me, I'll not talk to them, I'll not get along with them. And even the Bible says that whenever you are in trouble, your closest neighbor is the one who is going to be of great use and great help. So sometimes people just think of going to heaven and take it to the extremes, no listening to worldly music and all those things. So then they start living a dual life, where in church they are all together holy, different, doing all the work properly. Whereas in the neighborhood, you see, means they will not even have contact with the closest neighbor, like that. So, whereas what the first basic teachings of Christ is, means the gospel is to empower us totally, means it has to penetrate every area of our life, just as we discussed, our personal life, family, parenting. So, if I am a follower of Christ, I should be the same with my neighbors and in the church with all the other people. Like, if at all some review is asked about me, it should not happen that in the church people are telling something different, and in my neighborhood or locality it is different. So then I am not living out the gospel well, nor am I demonstrating the gospel well. Because when we see even a series of Chosen, which was started by Jesus, so there Jesus is shown a very chill person. He is getting along with everyone. It's not that he is totally choleric, or maybe he is not, he's just focused on so much of on kingdom that he is not relating with other people, not having fun, or not talking to them, or not jovial. So we need to have a balance. And yes, uh, gospel is encompassing the overall areas of our lives, and it shows love, humility, and patience, and also an outward look towards the others. Okay, not just being content in what we have. Okay, my life is sorted, so I am just living it well, but also we should have an outward focus towards the other people. Like there are many quotes, when your financial stance improves, so you should not just improve your standard of living, but your standard of giving also. Means you should always have an outward approach towards helping others, those who are in need, getting connected with them, and hence living out the gospel and getting a chance to share the gospel with them. And also, if I am able to recall, I know that Gandhi ji also he has read many things about Christianity, and he didn't become a Christian mostly, I think, because of that political front that he would not be getting the leadership authority, might be that is the reason. So he used to always say that I like Christianity, means the teachings about the gospel and all those things are good. But he used to say that I don't like Christians. The way we portray Christianity brings altogether a different picture, and hence people are little reluctant to accept the gospel. That's my take.
Thanks, Shruti. Anybody else would like to share?
Yeah, I think one thing was, for us, we always have been, from the beginning, it's been about, living our life once we get to heaven. So much of focus is on the other side of eternity, but then our focus should be on the here and the now. So, yeah, so that is very important. So, yeah, that is something that resonated with me.
Well, I did this session today because I think we have fragmented a bit. So I think we get the whole picture why we are doing this course. We are on an exercise to write our Didache statements, the gospel statements and the Didache statements, so that we can build our Didache within our churches. And for that, we are doing the exercise of what the apostles wrote in the New Testament, how that developed across the centuries. So that kind of helps us to do the exercise of building our own Didache document. Okay, I'll close for today. I hope everyone has.
Can you please share the sheets, Pastor, whichever 2-3 sheets were there?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Pastor Sindhyapan, you are quite
listening.
Pastor Joseph, Pastor John, and maybe traveling or busy. I'm not sure.
No, here only, no, Pastor. I'm here only.
Pastor, what news? How is
marriage and all things? There are a lot of things more to be done.
Okay.
See, but then somehow trying to balance things.
Thank you, Pastor. I mean, I
not
never
easy, but then trying to somehow be part of the whole thing because I don't want to miss out.
Thank you, Pastor. That is really good.
George,
yes.
You have to change the way you are speaking. You are making so many dogmatic statements. After listening, people will shut their minds.
Pastor, what happened?
No, you keep on repeating again and again. Okay. You see, it may be true in many of the nominal churches or even believers' churches, but it is not true that that people are happy, at least not in any of the New Life Fellowship churches. Okay. That nobody is in a place where say we are not bothered, we are going to heaven, okay, and we live the life that we want to live. Okay. There are enough teachings that are being given in all of our churches about how to conduct a family life. We conduct family seminars, we conduct parenting seminars. Okay.
Pastor, can you tell me?
There are certain areas. 1 minute, George.
This is why I like to talk to you first.
No, I don't have much time to talk. I've been listening to you most of the time driving, no problem. But what I'm saying is, hey, George, you cannot just outrightly say that no, all these years you have been wasting, you have not been doing anything, nothing of that sort. See, whatever, okay, is there in the first 2 books, the first part 1 and part 2 of First Principles, okay, which you can sum it up in 40 statements, okay. So, all these things have been taught by every one of our churches. Every one of our churches, in the worst of our churches, New Life Fellowship churches, the worst of our churches also. Also, you're talking about discipleship manual. I can show you a number of discipleship manuals which are talking about how to live your family life, how to do in your work, what to do in your workplace, and all those things is taught by a number of discipleship books. I can tell you.
I'm coming quickly. You
come. Hey, George. So don't make such sweeping statements, dogmatic statements. Okay. That will shut everybody off. Okay. We all have been laboring.
It is not shutting people, it's actually opening people's mind.
No. You are not opening anybody's mind. Okay, because
At
we
least
are
I'm having that result, Pastor. I'm having
no,
that
George. It is not George, just
not only
because,
within New Life. I'm talking about it generally wherever we go and we share these thoughts.
see, George. 1 minute, George.
People come back
See,
and tell me, we never thought about this.
yeah, George. That's what I'm telling you. See, it may be true for many people. Okay, many churches, believers churches, charismatic churches, Pentecostal churches, Baptist churches. It may be true of many people. Forget about the unbelievers. I mean, for believers churches, it may be true. Okay.
So
But
we were talking
the fact
generally.
of the
Pastor.
matter
We're not
is,
talking specifically with New Life. We were talking generally. I told about my experience, Pastor. You cannot deny my experience.
no. See, see what I'm saying is,
I'm not specifically accusing New Life or any organization. I'm generally talking about Christendom. I am a child of that Christendom. And now I was in New Life for the last 32 years.
no,
That is
everybody, every church, okay, at least the believers churches, they emphasize. Yeah, there are churches who have gone into hyper grace. There are people who have gone into prosperity teachings.
Pastor.
It's not untrue.
Pastor,
it's not untrue.
Can I my 32 years in New Life now, because you brought it like that. After living about close to 91, I came to New Life. 2003, we attended the first marriage seminar.
Okay, George. So, what
Then,
do you have to say about that?
Another 3 years later, I attended another marriage seminar because I wanted to, I mean, in terms of what New Life conducted as marriage seminars. We are not talking about that once in 3 years, 5 years teaching on marriage. Pastor, do you know how faithfully we teach on spiritual warfare and speaking in tongues and this thing, but we don't teach that faithfully, consistently on marriage, which is more key for us, to have let our people live every day of their lives.
See, George.
Now our swords are out, Pastor. Let's finish this.
No. See, the thing is, see, every movement, every organization, it evolves. Okay, it evolves. Yeah, that way speaking, even today we don't have a written hierarchy for all of New Life Fellowship churches. Okay, everybody will be teaching what they want to teach. Okay.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, that is one good positive statement you have.
That's what I'm saying. So it does not mean that we were not interested, or we are not tried. We have put all of our efforts. I'll tell you whatever these two books are, whatever this first principles, 2 books. Okay. I have taught all these things.
Pastor, I'm not talking about you, Pastor. I'm telling you something. No. Of all the pastors I am aware of, you are one of the persons who have probably done a significant part of teaching many of these areas. I am talking generally, Pastor. No, the Pentecostal, the emphasis that we have placed, whereas we have put at aside some of these key areas, teaching in once in 5 years on conferences. But that's not what we're talking about. It is a daily teaching.
George, that's what I'm saying. Not only that, Sir George, he subscribed to the basic idea. Okay. That when you repeated more than 90%, you repeated with two meetings back what you told, the same thing you repeated with the diagram, you repeated the same thing, 90%, you repeated the same thing. We definitely, okay, even having said and done, we also gone off from the small group model, the discipleship model. So the discipleship cannot be individualistic. It cannot be classroom. Okay.
But that is a different entity. What we are now talking is the content in the course. It is not about New Life. It is not about, we are looking at this.
No, you told
it's a course-based. What I'm talking is course-based. What I talked about is for us to write the competencies, what is the foundational understanding, what we need to build on.
Yeah. There's no doubt. See, no, the foundational understanding.
Pastor, it would have been that this competency would have been very easy for me if we already had a Didache statement, or if we had a proper Didache manual that was there that we were using.
We don't have.
See, George, so no, Pastor, what I'm trying to say is 32 years later, I'm still not having a document that I can straight away cut, paste it and put this. My competency would have been written like this.
Yeah, that's right. So that's right.
That's all. We are only talking about that, Pastor.
Yeah.
Because there was no emphasis on that. The need for that.
Need for the content, yes, it was not there.
Pastor, that's what I'm trying to say. Don't you
Well,
think we all considered the Didache as key and as important as the gospel? Wouldn't we have invested our time and resources to write that first or to build that properly?
nor have we written the gospel, no, George.
Pastor,
The
at
gospel.
least we have written something. We have written something. There is something written for us.
No,
Over
no,
the last couple of years, we have written something. We have written something, Pastor. We have written something.
As we are trying to rediscover Didache, we also have to rediscover the gospel.
Restate the gospel. Restate it. We don't need to discover it.
Reset,
We need to restate it. We need to place it in the perspective of the early church so that we can fully grasp. Pastor, just I'm putting one picture because before we close, I want to see just one text I wanted to say. Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, the gospel that you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word that I preached to you. Now, that is just one of the areas. But if we are taking the New Testament, which, Pastor, I know you are a pundit in, I am telling you that it is Paul is talking again and again. Everywhere he wants to make change, he uses the gospel to bring about a change in an area of life and applies it. We have put most of these, Pastor, I'm giving you an example. In my own context, being very sensitive to some of these ideas, do you know that parenting is done once in a couple of years? We are actually teaching, which should be something that we are talking daily to our church people, how we need to help our children to walk that journey.
George, I am not denying the I'm not denying the need.
First, let us as new. Now I'm going to hit it hard on New Life only, Pastor. First, let us as New Life get this sorted out. I forget everybody else. Let us sort this out, Pastor. Let us bring back to the primary what needs to be primary. Instead of talking tongues, spiritual warfare, and then going and restating the gospel in 100 different ways.
None of those things are being systematically taught. None of those things are being taught in a proper manner. Okay.
Pastor, and you said all the churches. I want to take you to the churches, Pastor. Let us see the content that has been transpired over the last 3 years in any of our churches. If there anything related to these things. I'm guaranteeing you, if you do an assessment, I'm willing to take up a responsibility of taking an assessment, which my wife did recently for something else. I will take, with your permission, I will go to all the churches and I will ask them to state the content that has been taught in sermons or in other platforms or in our conferences or in any of the things that we have done as a corporate. What was the theme of the conference? What were the themes of the sermons that were spoken? What were the themes in the studies that we had? We had a lot of encounter meetings, encounter. We are pushing people to somehow be filled with the Holy Spirit in speaking of tongues, such that we are teaching them only those content. Good, we are Pentecostal charismatic, so we should be doing that thing. But where have we taught, which is on a primary basis? We have significantly failed as New Life Fellowship in raising up a good Didache manual, which our pastors should have been trained and taught to teach from the New Testament. We have failed completely. End of the story. I rest my case.
You're not saying that we have done everything perfect. Everything has been done. Okay.
Pastor, let us stop defending this. Let us stop defending this. Let us come to a certain.
You are not allowing me to speak at all, no, Judge. You are taking 20 sentences to speak, and I'm not allowing me to speak 2 sentences. How can we have a discussion? All that I said was the way you are talking dogmatically, okay, that will shut the people's mind. You please talk differently. Okay. We cannot say that we have all the Didache and all the teachings in place. I never said that. I'm not defending. I'm in no way defending. Okay. I am only acknowledging the absolute failure, okay, of the New Life Fellowship Church and primarily all of us who are there as pastors. We have failed miserably in the content area and also in the area of how to teach. Okay, we have failed. There's no doubt about it. That's why the last 2-3 council meetings also it was discussed, and finally we agreed to come up with some kind of a discipleship manual. Okay, so the need is definitely there. and the failure has been acknowledged. Okay, so we are not saying that what you are saying, what you are talking is also wrong. All that I saying, the way you are presenting it, so dogmatically, as if we have previously done nothing. We all have tried. We all have tried. See, George, we all have tried and we have failed. We don't have a content. We don't have even a method of teaching. Okay, even the conference may not be the method of teaching. Okay, as you said, elder men has to teach, younger women, older ladies should teach younger ladies. All is the concept of discipleship. Even we are not even doing that. Okay, so we have failed in every area. That's why we have failed to produce disciples. We all got stuck up somewhere along the way. Okay, so we can acknowledge, we can repent in dust and ashes. But the sweetness of the lips increases our learning. So at least tell something good and then tell something bad, no problem. Okay, so
Thank you, Pastor. It was good. I was little getting bored today, actually. You sweetened my day.
I was getting irritated through the meeting, George.
Pastor?
I was getting irritated through the meeting.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to create that irritation. I mean, you were quite. I knew that you were getting irritated. Pastor, Pastor, whatever I've shared, I've shared with a huge number of people across the board. I'm not talking about New Life. I'm talking about Christendom today. And we talk generally to, I'm teaching this to many people outside this thing also. And I'm having an extremely, deep conviction, wow effect from everyone. They never felt accused. They are saying, you're correct. I mean, I'm creating a questionnaire, which of course I'm going to take to all of our churches now that you've given me this wonderful idea. I'm going to write a paper and I'm going to prepare and take it to all our pastors. And I'm asking them to put down certain things and I'll come with the result. I mean, statistically proven result of what we are talking about. Subhash, I know you have to go to sleep. You please go to sleep.
No. I just wanted to comment on this because I am reading Thessalonians now, and one thing amazes me was Paul spent only 3 weekends with the Thessalonian church, and they became the sounding gospel for the entire Macedonia and across even surrounding areas, because they understood the gospel and they lived out. So I don't completely agree with the statement that the teaching will help to shift the paradigm. Yes, absolutely, teaching is necessary, but there is also a part of the commitment from the people's side and the power of the Holy Spirit, which we always negate.
Yeah, that's right, Subhash.
Where did we negate the power of the Holy Spirit?
That's a problem with the entire, not only with the New Life Fellowship, that is a problem with many of the churches. I don't know, and I was just listening to another PowerPoint presentation from another, we spend so much time in teaching and equipping, and ultimately nobody is doing the fishing.
Subhash, what are we teaching? No use teaching doctrine. That's what they're teaching now. Subhash, one more thing. We never negated the work of the Holy Spirit. I believe the work of the Spirit is the discovery and recovery of the gospel and the Didache. The work of the Holy Spirit is what we are seeing span out across history. And to say that then you will have to take away part of the Matthew 28, 18 to 20, Subhash, you delete that off, the second half. Just say, preach the gospel and baptize them and make a church. Fantastic.
No, I'm not talking. I'm not
That's
talking
exactly
about that.
what you're saying. Forget the teachings.
No.
We just need the Holy Spirit. We need to speak in tongues. We need to rock and roll and worship and dance and everything. That's what you're saying. So you just undermine the gospel. You undermine the Great Commission.
No. Paul
George, again and again, George.
Just 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks he was there.
So, but Subhash, you forgot. You are looking at the 3 weeks. Do you know how many times he sent people there? Do you know the letters that has gone there?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to. I didn't finish my statement. So then he was addressing all their concerns, and that was the letter is all about, right? Thessalonians, First and Second Thessalonians.
That is the teachings we are referring
after 1 year. Yeah.
That is the teachings we are referring to.
Yeah.
And in those 3 weeks, it is not the gospel he spoke.
Yeah, one thing what I'm trying to say is we should not negate the fact that they lived out. And I think that the problem is not only teaching in this 21st century, the problem is also worldliness and the business of the life, which, including me, I struggle to spend time in the Word of God and even to finish this study because absolutely there is so many things are going on. So there is pressures of life, things to manage, and which is not the case, and of course those people were above and beyond, including Paul, faced persecution. Out of that, they were living in the hope of coming of the Lord. And I think that's another important point that this generation, we all, including me, I'm talking about, we all talk about gospel, we all talk about living at the why we can't live, because we don't live in the hope of the return of the Lord. And all those days, everybody say Maranatha. How many of us? I can't say that. I always say that the Lord come today. I don't have the boldness to say that. I don't. I rather think about my family and maximum maybe my church or the people I work with. That's all my scope is.
Subhash, you just spoke exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You just spoke exactly what I'm saying. The need for teaching, the need for sound teaching that comes out of the gospel, that would not have taken to you and me in this situation right now. Yes, Elijah.
Yeah, just adding to something, right? I think even the focus, right? What we are doing, and I don't have time, and we don't have time. All of this teaching only makes sense in the context of the local church acting like a family. You remove that out, and it becomes like not exactly to another discipleship manual, but most discipleship manuals which focuses only on the individual. When you start living like a family within the local church, just like you make time for your family, despite how much busy you are, and maybe people don't do that also, and I think that's also a result of we being so focused on so many other things, like careers and so on, that we don't remove time for family. But when you bring this context of family to the local church where you are meeting regularly, and it becomes, initially it's very difficult because then you have to arrange your schedules and this, but when you see the joy of coming together as the church, as this local body learning together and maturing, I think that's what the early church enjoyed. And they were equally busy, they were equally occupied, they had health challenges, sanitation challenges. I think every culture looks at that we are the people who are most what do you say, we are going through the most amount of difficulty, but even in the early church we had that. So times change, but the mentality of people are this way. That's why we need the gospel to reorient us and to make us realize what's priority and what's not. And once we capture that, and that's why the teachings of Christ are so important, because it helps us orient ourselves within our cultures, within our circumstances, and brings it in the light of Jesus to our families, to our local church, to our communities around.
Subhash, what you shared was exactly what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying. The challenge we are here today in our situation is because we didn't have a proper discipleship training based out of the gospel. Now, using the Thessalonian communities again, coming to the same thing that we are saying. Why was Paul anxious? What happened to the Thessalonian community? He was waiting for Timothy to come back and tell him, have these guys made it? Because he couldn't thoroughly spend time there. He sent Timothy to establish them. He wrote letters. The very letters that we are talking about was an establishing them in the gospel. So you are actually getting to the correct exact place.
Actually, brother, Paul in the first chapter itself clearly says that you are following us and following Christ, and we don't need to preach the gospel anymore. You are witness, and your life and the way you are witness is sounding
So
gospel.
what was he talking about?
Right?
What was he talking about? That Paul has given them substantial content. He has trained them. He has taught them. But he didn't have enough time, like the 3 years in Ephesus, or he came in. He was probably there for close to 3 weeks or 4 weeks. He shared preached the gospel. He taught them the different things that is there, and then subsequently, because he's worried now, Paul writing to the Thessalonian community is from a yeah, sure, Robin, is from a point of fear that this community is not with him. And therefore, he is speaking very nice. If you go to the biblical theology, you will understand what he is trying to say there, that he is telling them, man, you guys have done it. I had very little time with you. I spoke the gospel to you. I taught you these things. Because if you come to the next half of it, the next half of the whole this thing, he is talking about, these are the problems that you guys have. What is he doing again? He spoke the gospel, he taught them. Now, after 1 year is coming them, of course, before 1 year, he sent Timothy to check it out. Then he is coming back to saying, well, after he assessed the church, he's saying, these areas you're weak in, you need to work on these areas. So today, that happened in time, that happened situationally. But today, we are, as missionaries, we are going, preaching the gospel and coming back. We are not following up like Paul to see that their life is ordered. Because for him, that was key. That was key. He said the life had to be ordered according to the gospel in different areas of his life. And in Thessalonians, even the second half of both First and Second Thessalonians, he actually addresses those issues. So what I am trying to say, or this course is trying to say, it's not me telling, okay? What this course is trying to say is, we need to come to a fresh understanding of the gospel, which is, I would say, calling it as restating the gospel in our culture and context against the background of the early church and how they did it. And then writing a modern day Didache to train our churches from, again, the early church written within our context. Now, like as you said, Subhash, when you write your Didache, you should build a case against the whole idea of what marriage is supposed to be between man and woman. From that, you can bring out the gender issues, gender dysphoria, and all of this. Write your Didache according to that, because that for your culture is something key for you with regard to the early church. So like that, we are asked to write a fresh Didache document.
That I understood. But I think what I'm trying to say is, as we are, the leaders, I think what reading between the lines in Thessalonians are, they were closely watching Paul, and this guy, beaten up in Philippi and came to Thessalonica. There also the people came and revolted against him. Then again, he ran away to Berea. Again, there, the same people came there, and and he gone through again a tough time, and then moved to Corinth. And all these are, they knew his story, they knew his past life, they knew his zeal for the God, the living God. And I think teaching is important. Not I think, absolutely important. At the same time, on the other end, as ministers, our life and our zeal, the way we live, have very much impact in our church and the community where we live.
Subhash, you're just saying the same thing. I don't know why you're not able to see it. How do our life make an impact? Is the way we are taught, isn't it? How we are living our life. So you're saying teaching is important, but more important is my life. That's exactly what we're trying to say. Your life would be based on how you taught the gospel and how you applied the gospel in all of your lives. Now, when you are saying participating in the mission of the church, that is one of the third book in this thing, which is primarily talking about sharing of the gospel and turning your house into a mission base. Then when we go to advanced studies, where like in this thing, we look at the whole idea of going and planting churches and establishing churches, the same thing. So you are actually saying one side, but then saying the other side, but you are not able to connect these two. The teachings we are talking about, Subhash, is not these doctrines that we are talking about, all of these fantastic philosophical ideas. He's talking, this is now that you believed in Jesus Christ, you are not your own. You have to now live your life according to how Jesus has told us. And that is given through the gospel, to the apostles, through the Spirit, and is now laid it out of us for us in a situational theology situation, which we have to extract out of it, okay? And we have to teach our people. That
Yeah, I agree with, I totally agree. We need to teach. Definitely
but
we
the,
need to
your,
teach.
the way you are
But at
placing
the
it,
same time, don't you think that can we, what I'm trying to say is we cannot say that because of the lack of teaching, people are not mature. I think at the same time, we have to put blame on me, don't blame on others, blame on people like me, not living the way we are supposed to be.
Matthew, Subhash, we are living like that because we were not taught. We were not taught the Didache. Are we not able to get this connection? You are saying the same thing again and again. I am taking the blame. I am not blaming anybody here. I have the responsibility to give to my Jesus when I meet him how I badly failed that today somebody is following a cult religion today. He came to salvation very nicely as I preach the gospel to him. I preach gospel to people whose marriages are breaking today. I have a divorce case in my church itself. I have different situations in my situation in my churches itself. I am not blaming anybody, but I am telling you that I also have failed because I did not know. I was myself not equipped. And therefore, I could not equip people. Therefore, the world cannot see gospel lived out in my life or in the lives of the people that we are saying. Many of them are lost. That is what I'm saying. You're saying exactly the same thing. And that would be primarily because we preach the gospel, but we did not establish them through teaching. Paul established the churches through teaching, even the Thessalonian church. What we are seeing, First Thessalonians and Second Thessalonians, is an establishing work he's doing because he could not spend significant time.
But
Thank you. Thank you, Subhash. I mean, you are really
I don't
stimulating.
want to keep you long, but at the same time, if we can turn off the recording, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our job is done for the recording, actually.